statement that still it's something which we have to go beyond that by saying the rights of the Palestinians and waiting for something to happen over there, which is still not happening. Once again, we should not be naive. After 2 years being in charge, it's not possible to come with something which is to change completely, but still from words to implementation, from policy, we still are waiting for something which is beyond only being or facing tension between the Prime Minister Netanyahu and the current Obama administration. So having said that now, let me just go on 2 levels and 2 dimensions which are quite important, where we can look at the future. So it's a new era. How can we deal with this, and in which way we can expect things to happen in the United States, but also in the relationship with the Muslim majority countries? 3 areas very quickly. The first one is really the domestic dimension. And this is where he said that the United States of America is, or Islam is an American religion, and the Muslims are doing an important, providing the American society with an important contribution. This is still what we need to promote much more. What is expected is not only to speak about Islam with good words. Now it's really important in this country to be involved in something which is teaching about Islam, knowing more about Islam. We need the fellow American citizens to know much more about this, and there is no other way to have a very clear educational policy in our schools, in what should be done and in which way we have to provide a better understanding of Islam. And this is the educational policies, the which way we are promoting this. And this is where the American Muslims should be much more involved. Our answer to a lack of knowledge about Islam is not only to come with Islamic schools, is to be involved in the state school system, is to be involved everywhere, within academia, in the high schools, everywhere. This is something which is very important, because the future is, on the domestic dimension, has to do with education. And if we say, as he was saying, that there is a lack of understanding of Muslims and Islam in the Western society, and this is it. I'm dealing, I was born and raised in the West. We are dealing with something, we are serious about knowledge, understanding, and dialogue on an equal footing. It starts in our school. So we cannot just have a talk, a speech, a political speech. We need to have policies on the educational front at every level. And as citizens, we should be involved in this. Are we doing the job? Are we seeing this translated into reality? I wonder if we understand our responsibility here, because this is something which is important. It's not only important for the United States of America, it's important for the relationship between the states and every single Muslim majority country to understand what is happening. If you get a better understanding of your fellow Muslim citizen, this is the way you can also reach out and build a better understanding, have a better understanding. The second thing which is important, which is also coming from within, I'm still dealing, and I met some of the officials, not only in this country but abroad, I'm still dealing with people having this very problematic perception that we have bad Muslims, good Muslims. The good Muslims are the so-called moderate Muslims, and we're still dealing with them, and the bad Muslims are the Muslims that we are not so sure about what they think, and they may not support in a blind way the American policy. Now it's high time in this country as well, not to come with this discourse about good and bad and fundamentalist and moderate. We need to have a better, more sophisticated way to deal with the community and to understand at the highest level that there is a diversity of Muslim trends. And if you want, this morning I was listening to papers where saying that the way the Obama administration is dealing with, for example, some of the political trends is based, sometimes it's very difficult. It's still very difficult to deal with Islamist groups without confusing them with Al-Qaeda. There is a diversity of trends. But it starts here. It starts in our society when we deal with literalists, when we deal with the Sufi, when we deal with reformists. This is where we need to have this discussion. If we fail to have it here, how are we going to be in touch with the people over there? It's not only when they are in power with Turkey, for example, because we have no choice. We have to understand that there are trends in Muslim majority countries that are diverse. Not all the Islamists are terrorists. And not all the Islamists are static movement, they are changing, they are moving. This morning we are talking about the second generation of people, and this is starting here. This is where we have to be involved. And this is why it's very important for the American Muslims to be involved in this. Not to wait, or not to be passive, waiting for the administration to say, okay, who are the good Muslims we're talking to? And ending sometimes with ex-Muslims as moderate Muslims. So this is a problem. I think that this is where we have to be involved. The second point, which is important, because this is something which is, this will be a future challenge, which is very important, is also not to speak only with immigrants, Muslims. You have in this country African-American Muslims that are still dealing with racism, discrimination, and the class segregation is still a reality. So when I'm said that because we have an African-American president now, it's over, we have him, that's wrong. The symbol is hiding the reality. And the reality is that we have to deal with it. And when we talk to an African-American president who wants to be in touch with Muslims, it's very important from within to the Muslims to open up and to say, we're not only sending the new citizens and the new American citizens and to speak about integration. I'm sorry, we don't speak about integration to African-American Muslims. They don't need them. They are citizens, they are native Americans, and they want to be respected. And it's very important to be able here to come with this understanding and not to forget that we are dealing with social classes still and class segregation. And this is what we need something to be done. We need the president not to forget about this. And not only to speak about, you can, yes we can. No, I'm sorry, some can't. They cannot do it. Because they are facing discrimination, racism, and because they are still, and if you are black, American, and Muslim, these are three things that could just justify a failure. So we have to push, we have to be assertive, but not just to be blind with these realities. And this is why we do that. It's something also which is really important for all the Western countries. For all the Western countries. I'm not coming from Europe to share with you something which is a superficial American dream. It's much more about a struggle for justice and equal citizenship that I want to share with you. Because you know what? In the suburbs in France, in areas in London, in some cities in Europe, we are dealing with this. It has nothing to do with religion, it has to do with social segregation, and this is why sometimes we have to separate this and to be able, still, Islam is understood as a cause, it's not. It's not, and this is where we have to come together. Still have 5 minutes? 2? Wow. Okay, so this is about the domestic. There is also an area which is quite important, and once again, in the domestic dimension, it's very important, it's a two-way process. This is where we have to be assertive, confident, and to go beyond this mistrust. And you can help us, because still from where we are in other Western countries, in Muslim majority countries, the perception is, okay, it's nice speeches, still what is done. And this is why we need much more, when I can tell you this, when we were in Chicago, listening to you speaking the way you are speaking, I went back to Europe and said, I heard a speech, which is for me a great hope. Because I can see that as someone who is involved in politics, you come with a critical thinking, assertive and saying, we have to do the job, and not being, or playing the victim mentality or victimhood is not what we are talking about. So this is why we need what we need with the new administration. But also to be critical on things that are still here. I'm here today, but how many are not? How many are still banned from the country? How many are in jail? How many are facing discriminations and things that has to do with security that are wrong? We want the current administration to deliver. We need to change this. These are not the values of this country. This is, yes, from the past, but we need this to be. So we also have to be involved with all the civil liberties, organization working on that, and this is where we are. But at the borders, I'm sorry, you feel, and you may feel that there are unequal treatment, and we have to change this. And all the security measures are still problematic. So we also need to be courageous as citizens and to be courageous as people dealing with all the other social organizations, not only as Muslims, but as Americans, and to say this is where we have to deliver. Let me just now conclude with something which is the Muslim majority countries. we have to be serious.